Hey guys, Dinesh here with Gibson Brands, and we're here coming from Sweetwater GearFest. Our very special guests right at this time are Working Class Music. I've got Jason and Tia with us, who are just jamming through a couple of our items through the California Tweed, and we're super stoked to have them here. I want to have a little chat with them, get their ideas on what's happening right now as far as gear, music, and what's going on in their own channels and what they do online. Jason, Tia, thank you so much, guys, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, you guys are sounding great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to have like not Eruption playing for a change at one of these events, so I appreciate it. We could totally do that again.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on. I know you guys are on social. I know you guys are crushing it every day. Give me a little insight to like what the channel's about and what the theme and the messaging is really. Like what's the real message behind everything, you know?
The message for the channel, I believe I can take this, I think. The message for the channel.
Depends on what you say.
Yeah, depends on what I say. We realized that there weren't a lot of people like us in the gear playing community, or at least on YouTube. So we decided to go about our own way to like kind of enter that world, if you will.
Yeah.
We didn't really go in expecting like, oh, we're going to be the biggest channel ever. It was just literally like, hey, we're a bunch of friends. Let's do this and have fun and like give marginalized people something that they could possibly enjoy.
Yeah. And
something that's different from what's out there. Because, you know, like you said, you know, we're not really known for Eruption, if we're known at all. so, you know, just something different.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Just kind of scrolling through YouTube demos and things like that. And I'm not knocking or bashing anyone out there.
Yeah.
It was just, you would search for something and just see a lot of like blues dad, you know, type stuff. And it was, I don't want to say frustrating, but it's just like, we know what this sounds like. I just want to hear it from a different perspective or through, you know, like just a different genre.
A different genre. I know what you mean. I think I see it as well as you do. I mean, especially like when we do our product videos and stuff, like we're always trying to be conscious of like, what style did we do on the last video? Is it sounding the same? Are the tones the same? Are we going to change it up? You know, what would you say is like, I mean, especially as you guys are also watching YouTube content that's out there. If you see a guitar video, there's someone like shredding 1,000 miles an hour, and you're like, okay, I kind of get what that sounds like, but like, I don't know what it's really going to do for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I kind of like it when you're just playing a piece of gear to play it, and then like you let the instrument breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? Because the lot of notes equals I'm looking at the notes. Like I'm not, you know, especially like with the amplifier demos and stuff, I always try to think about like, well, let's just play some like super just chord stuff, riff stuff, little bit of soloing just so we can hear that it does that.
Yeah.
But I'm with you because the stuff that you guys, you know, were playing just now, like, yeah, I don't hear that every day on, you know, especially in a lot of these situations. It's usually someone that's trying to go 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think it's good to slow down and breathe, relax a little bit, how you said.
Now, previously we spoke, and you do play separately. So how does that come into play on the channel? Like, who covers what, basically? Or do you guys just get to do your own thing? Like, what's the method behind the madness?
I would say we really just do our own thing because stylistically, T and I are pretty different. Like, but we've kind of figured out what we like doing, and the cool thing about it is like we just go in and we do whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're getting usually two different sides of something.
Yep.
So I think that's kind of helped us go in because it's never really been thought out in the sense of like, hey Tia, this is like, you know, a shoegaze guitar. Do like R&B soul, and I'll do like post-hardcore on it.
Sure.
It's never been anything like that. It's always just been like, hey, this is what I like. This is what she likes. We're just going to do our thing.
So the styles are open.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool because I heard like some Radiohead in the beginning. I heard like some other stuff. I heard R&B and everything. I was like, I haven't really seen that mix before. So I was like kind of a little surprised myself. I was like, okay, like we're going to do something like that. That's cool. You know, what would you say about the ratio of like being a gearhead versus just playing for the enjoyment? Who's the gear? What, you're laughing? Are you the gearhead?
I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Say it all. We keep it 100 here.
Yeah.
All right. So I had a roommate who called me a gear slut
Okay.
because I was constantly just trading guitars because I was never really happy with just that one thing.
Sure.
As I've gotten older, I guess it's slimmed down a lot.
Yeah.
Like I think the most I've had at one time was maybe 9 or 10 guitars, and I traded those all in for like 3 or 4.
Oh,
Right, gotcha.
I'm a total gear nerd. Like I play for the enjoyment of it, but
Yeah.
it's total. Like I have 3 of the same kind of guitars, and they all have different pickups. My pedal board, as everyone likes to make fun of me, is just massive and it's the spaceship, but it works for me. And like there are tonal differences that. For me, it's fun because it's just like exploring different things. So like certain eras do have like certain sounds,
certain weapons.
yeah,
like certain tools. You know?
Like I think people to a degree, like it's funny watching it on YouTube. It doesn't really translate well. Like, oh, this is how like El Nico 2 pickups would sound versus El Nico 5, even if they're like, that's something you have to hear in person.
Yep.
But I'm the kind of nerd that I like to dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had you both running through the California Tweed Mesa amp. You guys were like, yeah, let's check that out. So I'm curious your thoughts. You could ask me any questions on specs or anything like that. I'll give you an overview, but this is where I want to flip it to you guys and like, if you want to fire away. But I'm very curious to why you decided to, try this, and if you have any input or anything you want to ask me on that.
Firstly, I want one. I want one. I will give you. I'll just take this one. Don't know how we're going to take it on the airplane, but
we'll find a way. Don't worry.
Yeah, you're allowed to carry on.
Yeah, you're allowed to carry on.
I mean, you could get a carry on.
Yeah,
come
I'll just
on.
leave my backpack here. I don't need clothes.
I'll mail that home.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Honestly, I think it's funny because there's a lot of overlap between Tia and I think we both unintentionally gravitated towards that amp. And it was funny because Tia arrived before I did, and then I was just like, oh, I want to play that amp, and it's the amp that Tia was already.
Wow.
I love different tube complements, so I don't think at the moment I own something that's a 6v6.
Okay.
So for me, I'm always into that kind of sound, and I love clean amps because again, I'm a big pedal guy.
Yep.
So what question I had, the multi-watts, like, how is that implemented? Because I didn't realize, because I know we've lived in a world now where it's just like, oh, you got to go from bedroom to...
Yeah, so this concept is pretty interesting. I can't get into like all the specifics on how the amplifier is actually changing and doing what it's doing, but I will tell you this. There's this thing called multi-watt, and then there's a thing called dyno-watt. And between those two things, Randall had this, he had this idea a long time ago, this whole power scaling thing. And with this amp, especially in this room, I don't know if you noticed, but I started you guys off at about 20 watts, and then Tia wanted a little bit more headroom. She's like, I need a little bit cleaner and a little bit louder. So then I immediately went to the 40 watt setting. So the cool thing is with a traditional Tweed amplifier, you have to crank it to get bite and gain. And that's fantastic if your neighbors are cool with that, And the thing that we were trying to, talk to people about is like, you can get those cranked amplifier tones at bedroom volume. Now, every increment, you're going from 40, 30, 20, and then down to 10, and then down to 2. So like you can, drive this down to 2, crank up the gain, and now we've got like that crazy, like the Tweed would have had to been like full blast for that, And now you're at home being able to use this. You mentioned being a pedal person. I'm also a big pedal guy too, and it's like, get it clean, do what you want to do. I will say this, Tweeds, from my past experience, I've noticed like, when you say like a black panel style and like a Tweed amp, they take different pedals differently. What I've noticed with this is with a lot of the Boogie amps is there's a pretty wide range EQ. So like a little bit of treble goes a long way. The mids are really interactive with the bass. So I'm pretty confident like running a lot of the stuff that I've run through it, everything gets dialed in. And you got an effects loop, which Tweeds don't usually have. You get reverb, which Tweeds don't usually have. And again, when you guys needed the power, I had you on 40 and you were on, I think I want to say, I might have had you on 20.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a hair up on the 30. You know, again, it's this and the Fillmore are like our huge pedal platform amps, but then also tip the hat to those classic tones, you know? So it was nice to see that. I think you guys like recognized and like came in, and it was nice to hear you both playing through it, you know? Even though different guitars.
Yeah.
So for your Les Paul, since you had humbuckers, I kind of ran you into the low input.
That's what I was curious about.
So that way it didn't break up. But if you wanted it, then we could have maybe gone to the high, or I would have just thrown more gain on. So, you know, in the situation that you guys heard earlier, they were both really clean. I dialed it in pretty quickly. Like, it didn't take too long. I think the tuning took the longest.
Honestly, tuning took way longer than you going back and forth.
The air conditioner's a little like in and out. It's kind of interesting. So like every morning we're checking the guitars and stuff. But this also comes in a head version. You were playing through the head version to 212. So I think it's definitely something for you guys to consider if you're a pedal connoisseur or junkie, as we could say.
I am a pedal junkie, and I love that.
How'd you guys get into playing? How did we get started?
Oh God, I'm dating myself here.
Okay.
I guess I was influenced by a lot of '90s music because I grew up in the '90s.
Same here. So I'm gonna date. You're dating me as well.
Yeah, thus the Radiohead and like. But what inspired me more so than anyone is someone like Tom Morello, because that was cool to me. And then, you know, from there, it was just like there was the Smashing Pumpkins, and I got to see Tonight, and I remember that music video, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And I gravitated towards James Iha, and I was just like, he's cool. And then, you know, from there, it was just like, oh, there's Slow Dive and My Bloody Valentine. And then as the 2000s rolled on, I got into post-rock very heavily, still there. And for me, it was just like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Sure.
So for me, it was just those group of people that influenced me to keep playing guitar. And I've been very fortunate with it somewhat.
So no lessons, tabs, just kind of picked it up on your own, or?
A little bit of both, because
there was no YouTube back then.
No, there was no YouTube.
We had to like listen to stuff and like break it down, right?
Here's the thing. This is a crazy concept. They had music in schools. And I went.
They did?
Yes.
They did.
I went, and I was the kid in school that I tried to play everything.
Right.
Jack of all trades, master of none. So at the time, whatever band or chorus needed, I tried to do. So for me, it was like, oh, we need a guitar player. And I was like, well, guitar is cool, and I always wanted to do it. And it was an excuse to bother my mom to actually buy this for me.
Sure.
So I did that, and I learned by way of tab. Like, I suck with music theory. Mm-hmm. Recently, it's been figuring it out by ear.
That's great.
Which is cool.
That's a great place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ear is really important, you know? And how about you, Tia? What got you up and running on the old instrument?
So, I guess like to really start it off, when I was a kid growing up, I lived with my grandmother for a time, like my mom and I, and there was just this old acoustic guitar that had belonged to an uncle of mine from like decades ago, and I wasn't allowed to touch it. So
this already sounds like a good story.
Yeah, like I wasn't allowed to touch it. So eventually my grandmother noticed that I was taking an interest to it. So, you know, I was a kid, bought me like a Toys R Us first act acoustic guitar. That was my first guitar ever. Fast forward to like middle school, I guess I was having an angsty, you know, teenage kind of emo phase. Yeah. I was really into like Warped Tour and like My Chemical Romance and The Used and all that.
Very cool.
And honestly, that's like kind of what solidified it for me, because I, kind of like Jason, middle and high school, I was in orchestra. And I played everything except the viola. And so I tried to take what I learned from that and try to implement it into guitar playing. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like,
so, tabs, private lessons, self-taught?
Self-taught.
Nice.
I was in school for music and I dropped out. So still self-taught.
You wouldn't have been the first person, and
no, not the last.
They're totally fine.
No, there's still more coming and going as we talk right now.
That's right. That's right. That's awesome. How did you guys meet?
Through work. Yeah.
through work.
We work
Okay.
for the same company, different locations. Jason's someone that I kind of knew through other friends. You
Sure.
know, like everyone's got a friend of a friend.
Right.
And eventually we crossed paths. And I don't know, like I know separately I had been wanting to start a channel for a while. I'd
Okay.
been talking to some of my coworkers about it. And then also separately, Jason had been discussing the same thing. And then, you know, Captain Planet, you know, our forces combined.
And you guys already had the same musical taste. That's very cool. So what's coming up on the horizon? You guys got anything cooking? Like, is there anything happening that we should know about? Some
What-
top
yeah, what
secret
can I say?
information.
We have some things planned, but I don't want to spoil surprises.
Oh, dang.
I will say we've got some interview. I'll say this: we're going
Okay.
back to doing more interviews, and we've got possibly one of the biggest interviews lined up.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. One last question before we wrap. I want to know what would you tell someone that's just starting off, that's trying to get into the instrument, and what's some advice that you give to a new player, or like a young player or a new player?
My number one piece of advice is it may seem difficult at first, but once you get over that like initial like kind of learning curve, it's a lot easier from there.
Right.
So like if you can just work your way up that hill and make it through there, I promise you everything else will start to click and make sense.
Very cool.
I guess somewhat to add on to that, just persistence and play for the enjoyment. I think a lot of people.
Nice to hear that.
Yeah,
It's really nice to hear that. I
yeah.
think we forget about that a lot.
Yeah, because this was like if you're having fun, you'll get better. But
Yep.
if you feel like it's a competition, you'll take it as such, and you won't really improve your chops.
Yeah.
It's okay to not play at 1,000,000 miles per second and play 3 chords over and over. That's fine.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those 3 chords turn into a song,
Yes.
which
Exactly.
is, at the end of the day, probably the most important thing.
Yes.
Then you're actually using your instrument as a message.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, that's
He
great.
gets it. He gets
Yeah.
it.
That's really cool. Really great to hear. I'm glad you guys brought that up. Can you just give us a recap real quick on the channels and where you could tell people to find you guys on the interwebs?
Yeah.
Well, we are Working Class Music Show, WCM Show on Instagram. We have Patreon.
Yep.
We do have merch. We have affiliate links here, Sweetwater. So there's that. Just give us money.
Please, I'm in college.
Yes,
please.
please.
And you guys are based out of Atlanta, you were saying?
Yep.
Very cool, very cool. Super stoked that you guys came to join us. Thank you again, Jason and Tia. Working Class Music, everyone. Dinesh here from Gibson Brands. And again, we're here at Sweetwater GearFest 2022. Thank you so much. Look these guys up and follow them and like their stuff. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
Adios.
Adios. Laters.